All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this session. My name is Julio Lopez, and I'm Movable Inc.'s Senior Director of Retail Strategy. I'm here today to talk to you about the upcoming holiday season. If you're a retailer and you're in this room, it's very likely that you started planning for the Q4 holidays weeks ago. And if you're a retailer and you're in this room, you're probably having PTSD flashbacks to the insanity that is Q4 for us. So what I want to do today is unpack the season a little bit and begin to talk about ways in which we can maximize peak season performance and perhaps, just maybe, maintain some sanity along the way. The fact is, this is a make or break time for us, a make or break time for the year. We're talking impacts to shareholder value and honestly, whether or not we're going to be able to avoid layoffs. The opportunity cost is far too great for us not to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, D, E, F, G in place ahead of the season. Through the ongoing economic uncertainty, through the expected increase in the unemployment rate, and through the growing increase in consumer debt, November and December retail revenues are still expected to grow by 4.5% this year. The trillion of dollars at play during this season are the source of all of our late nights and our early mornings. And for us in particular, as email marketers, as mobile marketers, as digital marketers, we are the ones that continue to bear the brunt of that growth. E-commerce continues to have an outsized impact on consumer spending growth. And within that, mobile is where consumers continue to gravitate. And yes, of course, for those of us who work in omnichannel organizations, we care about our brick and mortar partners. But let's be honest, stores are not the ones that are getting that phone call at 1 p.m. from your CEO asking them to send another email or send another rich push notification. We are the ones that are on the hook for driving down to the hour comps because of the nature of how our channels work. Now, we can have a whole nother session on how the send another email or send another rich push notification strategy absolutely devalues the hard work that we put into building strong relationships with our customers. And for the channel leaders and the CEOs in the room, I really hope that you'll take that to heart. But for today, let's focus on how we can make the planned and unplanned communications as effective as possible. All right. The communications that we send out throughout Q4 and honestly throughout the year, they're an uphill battle. The barriers to maximizing peak season performance include things like macroeconomic pressures, the flight to digital, whether or not we have the right number of resources. Is it the merchant or is it the marketer that's going to decide what gets featured in any given communication? And honestly, whether or not our senior leadership truly understands how our channels actually work. So I know what you're thinking, please stop, you're making me sad, but this is the reality of every single day of our lives. So I clearly can't address all of these in the next 20 minutes, but what we can do is begin to talk about frameworks that will allow us to address some of these challenges. One very common result out of these challenges is what you see on this screen. Almost every retailer is guilty of doing this. Because of the limited internal resources, the same creative goes out for days on end, very likely to almost the entire mail file, if not a small part of it for a resend. Some brands are able to limit the number of resends to just a few days. Some brands have no choice but to send the same creative for weeks on end. And even when the creative can be varied a little bit, the offers are generally the same. So what this results in is creative and promotional fatigue. Looking at what you see here, why would a consumer convert on one of these messages on any one given day versus another? I would also argue that this approach reflects a marketer's hope that a consumer doesn't engage with us more than once in a given promotional period. And you can take me out back later and discuss that. It's also symptomatic of the macroeconomic pressures that we face throughout the season. Consumers simply expect deals. But let's be honest, how many different ways are there to say 50% off? And even if you can figure out how to say it differently, the question becomes 50% off of what? Is it the merchant or is it the marketer that's going to decide what gets featured in this email? Or if you're actually a customer-obsessed organization, like many retailers say that they are versus being merchant-led, how does the marketer personalize this message at scale? The first change that we need to make is to stop thinking of emails like they're poster boards. This approach of designing an email from top to bottom, from header to footer, like a fully designed asset, is simply not scalable. That doesn't mean that brands need to give up their creative control or give up their brand voice, but if your emails are taking weeks to design, somebody else is going to eat your lunch. Approaching email design like this is very much like grabbing a poster or billboard from the 1870s and putting it in the middle of Times Square. Brands need to stop designing emails like they're running a printing press. So let's ease into that concept a little bit. We know that the hero is the place where we're likely to get the most views and the most clicks and likely the most conversions. A simple adjustment that can be made is that instead of calling out the generic sale message, you can personalize the hero's editorial copy. The creative simply needs a placeholder where that personalization is going to be injected. In this example from Dune London, we can see that we have this 20% off everything sale. However, since we know the specific categories that this consumer has recently engaged with, we can change the copy and the creative, in this case to be flat sandals. We can also dynamically change the CTA and the click-through URL. And if the consumer hasn't met any of the business rules that we've set for that personalization, then the content simply collapses. Taking it one step further, the hero design can also have placeholders for products that, again, only show if your business rules are met. So in this example from the sporting goods, we can see that there's the 50% off sale. Again, we know what category is relevant to that consumer, perhaps because of what they recently browsed. We could automatically pull in things like top trending products in that category that the consumer has recently engaged with. What the editorial example from Dune and the more product-focused example from Dick's Sporting Goods showcase is that marketers and creative teams do not need to be beholden to specific SKUs or categories. You can quite literally feature and market every single aspect of your product catalog at scale. At the end of the day, these are simply templates. And what you can do ahead of the season is create a library of dynamic templates and select a different one to send each day so your content doesn't become stale. This is one of HSN's templates, where the products in each of the circles are new arrivals from categories where the consumer has recently engaged with. A template like this can be set up so that each product block has its own rules. One of them could be something that is merchant selected, and the rest can be something that's a lot more personalized, like a recent cart abandon, a recent browse, or recent or product recommendations. Imagine that, being able to balance the needs of the business or the merchants with our goals of one-to-one personalization. The point here is that even within a template, you can set up rules per block, and they can vary so that they can meet your specific goals. So one HTML, unlimited personalized versions. Similar logic can be applied to the navigation bar. Placeholder categories can be populated based on business rules, and fallbacks are in place if those rules aren't met. So Next Retail populates and orders their navigation bar based on predefined business rules. So even your navigation bar can have essentially an unlimited number of creative combinations, all within your brand styling and guidelines. Having dynamic, data-driven, personalizable templates is a must to win this holiday season. And that's because the season keeps getting longer and longer. As a result, we need to be able to adapt at a moment's notice. Last year, 56% of consumers said that they start shopping as early as October. That's a 24% increase from the year before. And it's Amazon that is anchoring this extended holiday hammock, with the first peak now beginning with their October events. We need to be ready to address the shifting sands, especially as consumers are being trained to shop earlier and earlier and earlier than ever before. Although the dates have yet to be announced even for the summer events, if I were a betting man, I would bet that Amazon will have another event this fall. Of course, retailers cannot compete by being on promotion for 3 full months. It's simply not scalable. However, you can use the holiday hammock to get to know your customers a little bit better. For example, Liberty London sent out an email to their customer base to understand who the recipient would be shopping for this holiday season. And then with that data in hand, a follow-up email automatically retargets content based on the individual responses, and relevant products are also pulled in dynamically directly from the website. So with this strategy, not only are you collecting actionable zero-party data, but you have an entirely new template that is fully personalized and fully automated. One HTML, unlimited personalized versions. HSN took this to new heights. Their poll asked, what is your go-to summer hue? And using that data, 4 different color stories could be populated in a follow-up email. This also allowed HSN to feature many different categories that might seem unrelated, but present them in a much more cohesive way. One HTML, unlimited personalized versions. You can also use the holiday hammock to cement your brand value. Again, we can't message discounts for 3 full months. And you can do this without exhausting your customers or beating them over the head with the same message over and over again. Barnes & Noble added banners to their key messages module to display benefits to their premium members. However, they didn't want the same message to show up over and over again. And so in this module, logic was implemented so that the message that shows up on Monday this week shows up on Tuesday the next week, the message that shows up on Tuesday this week shows up on Wednesday next week, and so on. So this makes it so that the number of times a consumer might see the same messaging is limited. And that example brings us back to the wireframe. That key messages module can host any and all important messages that you want to surface. Michael's Stores, for example, has a plethora of versions in their key messages module. These include things like cart abandonment, browse abandonment, search abandonment, loyalty visualization, and many, many more. Here, waterfall logic is applied so the right message shows for each and every single individual. And notice how the design of each block is very different. Even though it lives in the same section of the email, your creative team can design a template for each message in that block, giving you full control over the creative design. One HTML, unlimited personalized versions. And what about the rest of the email? Here's another mantra that I really hope that you'll take to heart in order to maximize performance this peak season. Static content doesn't have to mean boring content. And of course, you are going to have these stories that you need to tell or messages that you need to push because that's who we are as a business. And that's absolutely okay. But you can find ways to tell that story in a much more compelling way. One way to make static content a little bit more compelling is to leverage time-targeted messaging. Office Depot did this by showcasing a promotional calendar that counted down to specific events. And as the dates passed, the calendar dates were crossed out. What this allows for is for the same HTML to be used throughout the promotional period, but the static message now has more of a dynamic feel to it. And at the same time, it gamifies the experience. Consumers can see the deals that they missed out on, making them much more likely to engage with the current offer. Duluth Trading took that gamification a little bit further. They used a scratch-off to reveal a new deal each of their 12 days of deals. This adds, again, that dynamic gamified feel to the creative. And again, the same HTML can be used throughout the promotional period, automatically showcasing the right deal based on the date. And whether it's a static story or something more dynamic, at the end of the day, we're all trying to push our inventory. So we're going to see a lot more product messaging, especially as we get closer into Q4. And likely, this is going to come in the form of product recommendations. Even the most sophisticated recommendations engine will only tell you half of the story. Yes, a consumer may find your product to be interesting, but there's 2 big questions that we need to answer. We need to be able to answer, why should I buy from you, and why should I buy from you now? Let's be frank. Every other brand is going to have some sale going on, and some version of every product is available somewhere else. Now, we know that consumers are increasingly shopping earlier and earlier in the season in order to spread out their budgets and avoid missing out. Understanding consumer intent allows us to begin to answer these two questions. So, for example, one reason why a consumer should buy from you is your loyalty program. Macy's offered bonus points during their promotional period and layered the number of points that the consumer would earn on each individual SKU. Since the points to be earned are multipliers based on individual consumer's tier, Movable Link was able to do the calculations in real time based on the price of the SKU. So even if the product was on sale, and you can see that we're doing the sale calculation there as well, the number of points to be earned was reflective of the current price. So this clearly shows why a consumer should buy from Macy's. And why should a consumer buy at that specific moment? As we saw, consumers are afraid to miss out, so we can tap into that. Currys showcased items with social proof, meaning the number of views that that specific SKU had, the remaining inventory in stock, and also, of course, we calculated the savings price. These three elements drive urgency to shop before the deal is over or before the item is sold out. And so the consumer is compelled to shop today. So I know what you must be thinking, gosh, this seems like a lot of work. And I'm not going to say that it's easy peasy, but it's a lot easier than most marketers realize. Take this, for example, this custom application from Uniqlo. In the Movable Link Studio app, a marketer simply needs to select the style of the layout that they want the image to appear in, and the system does the rest. So this app had 6 different layouts, such as a tile, left-aligned or right-aligned image, and all the information is pulled directly from the website. This is just one way that you can inject some agility into your holiday marketing. Another way to add agility is the fact that once something is built for email, it's essentially reconfigurable for mobile. By and large, any of the email strategies that we recommend for you can easily be brought into the mobile channel. And because of the expected channel growth, in order to win this holiday season, retailers must make mobile a priority. As you can see with this REI example, a module built for email can easily be brought into mobile, like App Inbox. And the same is true for Rich Push. You can see here that we're doing price calculations, savings calculations in an automated way. So we've covered a lot in the last 20 minutes, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface. But if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this presentation, in addition to the things that you see in orange here, it's this. In order to maximize peak season performance, you have to stop thinking of your messages like they're poster boards. Instead, remember one thing: one HTML, unlimited personalized versions. So that brings us to time. We know that the year ahead is going to be filled with net new challenges and underscore existing ones. Let's figure them out together. With that, I want to say thank you for listening to this presentation and enjoy the rest of Think Summit.